Hey, now listen, these are 5 investments that you must have by the age of 35. I don't know. Are you at 35, you're above 35, or you're close to 35? The fact remains, these are 5 investments that you must have them by the age of 35. Hey, and by the way, the last 2 of them is what you're looking for. And that's what you ought to watch this video to the end for you to understand that specific point. And let me just remind you this in case you forgot, okay? I usually post a video each and every time posting information like this one, how to invest, how to manage your finances, how to go about it, all those kind of things. And if it does a cup of your coffee, meaning like you love this, then consider calling this place a home. And how do you do that? Okay, fine. There is a small button written subscribe, okay? Hit that magical button down below there and like this video. And by the way, it doesn't cost you anything. Let's get into the business. Did you do that? Good. Now, point number 1, this is an investment that you must have by the age of 35. And the first investment is that you must have investment on financial literacy. This one I cannot be able to even to forgive you about it. You must have the investment on financial literacy. You know why? Either way, whether you do not even care about financial literacy or you do it, you have to learn it. It's not a question of if it will happen, it's a question of when. And let me tell you one thing. There are 2 ways of paying about the financial ignorance, okay? Number 1 is this situation whereby you don't want to consult, you don't want to go about there and learn about how to manage your funds, you don't want to know how about to invest your funds and all those kind of things. Guess what you do? Hey, I am wise, I know I can do it, I'm just go about there and I'm gonna do it by myself. So you go do it, and then once you do it, like you go invest out there, or maybe say you're employed and you don't even want to consult anybody, just go out there and you do yourself, and then you realize, oh my goodness, I've been messing bigly. Okay, for example, I met somebody who told me, hey, guess what, Joseph, I just got a job and I was so happy. He was a teacher actually, or he's still a teacher, should I say. And then he told me, guess what, Joseph, I'm so happy I got a job, and guess what happened? I took a loan and I built myself a house, and I'm so happy that I do not I'm not paying any rent. But I have a stress. Why? I've constricted my cash flow to a point whereby I'm really struggling. And I was like, okay, after having a lengthy discussion, I realized the guy is actually financially literate. And you cannot blame them. Why? This thing has never been taught in our education. It's quite funny, it's not covered in our syllabus. Now, the point is this: the guy did not pay for the financial literacy, or maybe he did not bother to actually learn the financial literacy. For example, watching videos like this one. So that's why he's paying that financial literacy indirectly. It's like going out there taking money, disregarding the procedure that you're supposed to follow when investing, okay? And then you go invest in a wrong thing, your money's come and it runs away, or you do not have your money. Then it means that you've paid for the financial literacy using the other back route, but the fact remains you ought to pay it. Or maybe you start a business, doesn't go up well. Why? Because there are some of the factors that you ought to have considered when starting the business, but you did not. It just, you know what? You disregarded it. Then it means you're paying for the financial literacy in an indirect way. So that ought to have been the very first point as far as the age 35 is concerned. By the time you hit this age, you must have tried different things. You know this works, this doesn't work. You understand yourself. You know your risk appetite. You know the kind of a person you are, whether you are a spender, you know whether you are an investor, you are a frugal person, you are a minimalist, you are whatever. You already know yourself when it comes to investments. And that is the most vital thing that you can never have in life. All right, let's go to the next point. Next point is that, guess what, you actually invested on what we call social networking investment. You have that investment. Like, hey, guess what, you can have that individual who is not just a friend, is not even a liability, is an investment. I repeat my point, and I really hope you get this point. You can have an individual who is an investment. You can have an individual who sometimes maybe supplies you some things, and that's what you sell. If you were to eradicate that person from that equation, you're gonna be suffering in your business. You have that individual who you can just make a call. Let's say, for example, you are just a guy who is a handyman, and then you have a technician who works somewhere, and that guy makes you some cash, and by connecting you to a job, then by virtue of you having that guy as your guy in your connection or your circle, then you have a job. So there's some of the people who are actually what? They are actually, they're sort of an investment. Even if they call you and they tell you, hey, you have 1,000 bob or something, just don't feel anything, because they're actually people who help you a lot. Do you just have that individual whom right now as you speak, you can just give them a call away and tell them, hey, you know what? Tomorrow I do not have a form. Would you mind connecting me on what I can actually be able to do? And then they tell you, I got your back. Tomorrow you can do this or the other, and you can actually have food on the table. Now, that's what we call the social networking. By age 35, honestly, you're supposed to understand your network is always your net worth. And by the way, we are living in an era whereby you don't have to have a physical person. You really don't have to, what we call, you don't have to go out there and meet these people physically. You ought to have some people online, you can actually follow them. You can actually learn their character. You can actually have those kind of friends or something of sort. But never disregard the fact that if you can have some guys in your inbox whom you can just call at any given moment, they can connect you, they can show you a gig, and you can actually go ahead and utilize that gig as a group. That is the most vital thing that you can ever have. So at age 35, learn to invest on how you speak. All right, how you relate yourself, how you self-present yourself, the hygienic part of your life, also the social part of it, the spiritual part of your life, so that at least the financial part of your life, like you have this complete package that when you present to people, people can tell, hey, these guys know things to do with hygiene. These guys knows how to present themselves. You can actually express yourself. Have you ever met some guys who are so much smart and they have a lot of things in their head, but they cannot be able to express themselves? Yeah, I've met professors who have a lot of knowledge, but when it comes to, what we call it, presenting themselves, saying, hey, I am this, they have that challenge and they have that problem. So if you're above 35 and you cannot be able to express yourself, you're going to get yourself into lots of problems. Number 3 actually is what we call the health insurance investment. This is quite funny, and you might think I'm talking about you going there and subscribing to that insurance. It might mean that it's okay, no problem. This was of vital importance. But also understanding your body, but also understanding, hey, guess what? This ain't gonna eat this one, ain't gonna eat a lot of sugars. I'm not gonna go out there just have a lazy body. I'm gonna exercise myself. I'm gonna look fit. I'm gonna be out there. I'm gonna actually, this is type of food I'm gonna be taking. Even if it means me going the Omad way. You understand all yourself overly on what you eat, when you eat, how you eat it, when do you exercise, how do you exercise this, what is excess, what is minimum, what is required, what is average. Like you have all those array of things, having them together. And again, when it comes to also health and insurance, guess what? Before I even tell you this, you have to understand that a healthy nation is always a wealthy nation. I've always indicated that. If you cannot understand about your health, if you cannot present yourself in a quite, in an upright way, because can you imagine this? If you have some diseases, you cannot even focus on that job that you're doing. You cannot even focus on your investments. You cannot even focus on your businesses. So health is that vital thing that you ought to have it. It's not an excuse. It's not a if. It's not a what. It's a must. You have to have it for you to be able to go out there and present yourself as an individual who is upright, smart, and also progressive. Okay, so those are just but 3 examples of things that you're supposed to. I had to share with you these things so that at least you can be able to understand. Those are the foundational knowledge of the things that you must have them for you to actually be considered an individual who is at 35 and actually is progressive. Now, let's go to the last 2 that you've been waiting about it. And guess what? The number 6 is actually correct. Stocks. You guessed it right. So at 35, you shouldn't be asking people what is shares. It's quite discouraging, but I'm not saying you should not ask. It's always good to ask, but it's quite discouraging when you're asking people what is a share, what is a stock, and all those kind of things. And I understand. Maybe probably this information never put across to you, or maybe it was never presented, or you never thought about it. But the fact remains, hey, it's good to have yourself some shares and stocks. And by the way, these are kind of the very basic things when it comes to investment. It's quite not so impressive when you're learning about shares and stocks when you are 75 years old, and you are there hovering around and asking people, hey, what is a CDS account? How can I invest? How should I go about it? By the way, what is a money market fund? How do I get started? And by the way, I heard you talking about index fund. I'm not saying you should not ask. It is okay, it's good to ask, but it's good to make sure that you amass yourself the appropriate and right knowledge all the way before you hit that 5, you're below that 5. And if you just immediate after that 5, then you can be able to go ahead and do something about. That's the most vital and legitimate thing that you can ever do to yourself as far as the money is concerned. Okay, so stocks ought to go into them so that at least you can be getting something as far as your retirement is concerned. And talking of retirement, the last one that you're supposed to have as an individual who is above 35, or sort of you have to achieve it before the 35, is you have to have what you call the retirement plan. Okay, let me just break the bubble or bust the bubble and tell you the truth. At 35, you're no longer regarded in Kenya. By the way, don't regard you as a youth. You're no longer considered as a youth. Some of the privileges and advantages that you get from the government by considering people as a youth, you no longer enjoy them. So at this particular point, let me just call you, I don't want to say old buddy, but you're an individual who is already supposed to be putting his or her house in order. You're an individual who much of the things is actually entrusted with you. And by the way, if you come from Kenya, we can even entrust you with the presidency. One of the requirements for you to be a president in this great republic is that, but you must be at least 35 years and above. So the moment you guys, we can even entrust you with presidency, what does it mean? You know, if you cannot even put your house in order. So you ought to actually acquire a lot of knowledge and a lot of understanding for you to be in this situation. Okay, so the point is this, guys, you have to have what we call the retirement plan. That was the point that was in genesis of this conversation. Now, a retirement plan in the sense that, hey, one day you're gonna be old, your productivity is actually okay, so you're still at the productive age, but the time will come whereby you aren't that active, you cannot be able to actually go ahead and spend like the rest of the night working and all those kind of things. So it is good to make sure now you start thinking about the retirement. You know why? Right now the kids are coming in, you're actually actively educating your kids, you're actively being in a situation whereby, hey, in 2 or 3 years time you're gonna have some kids in high school or something of sort. And maybe sometimes if you're already, maybe probably you have a kid in that particular age. So even transformation, the way you present yourself, the way you think, the way you analyze issues, the way you actually more of observe than, you're actually conserving much of the energy and you're channeling it to more productive things. So those are just but examples of the things that you ought to have by the time you're hitting 35. And if you never achieved any of those things, guess what? These things are actually learnable and you can be able to access them no matter when you are actually in life. But if you're below 35, this is a challenge that I'm going to leave you with. But never forget this, you can always pick my number from the description of this specific video. Give me a call, we talk businesses, or if you want to grab my booklets, pick that number and let's talk businesses. For now, it's a goodbye and see you in the next one.